Now, my honest opinion, I believe if you have a glorified body, you are the bride. At this point in time, if you receive a glorified body before the part of the millennial kingdom, or even anyone who has a glorified body at this point in time, at the wedding feast, is the bride of Christ. That's my belief. Only because I don't think God would leave anybody out. That's just me. If they died in His name, like during the tribulation, even, I think they'll be considered part of the bride, regardless of whenever they get their bodies and everything else. Okay, I don't know a lot of these things. We only have speculation. That was not too clear on some things. And I think God did it like that on purpose. He wants us to think and use our minds, and so maybe He's just interested to see how close we can get. You know? Yeah. Ultimately, He's going to do it His way regardless. You know? But the more we try to figure it out and think like He thinks we're striving to be like Him. Okay. Verse 10, and He said unto me, See thou do it not. I am a fellow servant with thee and with thy brethren. Hold the testimony of Jesus. Worship God, for the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy. So right there, who was He talking to? The voice of multitudes, the voice of many waters. And He said, do not worship me, I am not the one. So if this was God or Christ, obviously it would be kind of a given. You know, he'd been like, fine, you should, because I saved your butt. But because He said, no, do it not, at this point in time, we're equals. I'm no greater than you, brethren. So this is an angel. And because he proclaims with the voice of many multitudes, with the voice of many waters, my mind goes to Gabriel. It really could be one named Ch19. I mean, I don't know. I really have no idea. But in my mind, Gabriel's the announcer. It's Gabriel. That's what I'm going to call him. Could I be wrong? Yeah. But does that could change anything? No. Even if it's not Gabriel, it doesn't change a thing. Okay, we're stopping there. Do not start at verse 11. Don't even look at it. Avert your eyes. Okay. One thing I want to point out that I should have pointed out all along. In the Greek, chapter 17, 18, 19. Whenever it says, the exact wording is, after these things, in the Greek, it's metahautahautos. Okay? Which is a Greek phrase that means something has to come prior to. When I told you guys, when it says after these things, it means something had to occur beforehand. In the Greek, metahautahautos is that's what that phrase specifically means. They have two different Greek phrases. One can mean, this has to happen, this can happen 30 years later. And one means, this has to happen so this can happen. It's a sequence of events. It's a chronological order. Metahautahautos is the chronological order. It says, this happens, and because this happens, this happens. It's a sequence of events, roughly very close to each other, and it's cause and effect. I just wanted to point that out to you guys. And I don't think I need any of that. Now, when it comes to the bride, there's a scripture I want to read to you guys. It's in Ephesians 5, 25 through 27. Ephesians 5, 25 through 27. And it reads, Husbands, love your wives, just as Christ also loved the church and gave himself up for her, so that he might sanctify her, having cleansed her by the washing of water in the word, that he might present to himself the church in all her glory, having no spot or wrinkle or any such thing, but that she would be holy and blameless. That's where we get the analogy whenever it comes to biblical reference of Christ and his bride, and the bride being the church. That's where we get that. And if that's not enough for you, going on to Ephesians 5 again, but verse 32, it says, This mystery is great, but I am speaking with reference to Christ and the church. So if just that one, those few right there wasn't enough, Paul makes it simple. It's like, you know what? And just in case you missed that for you slow folk, it's Christ in the church. In case whatever. So, anytime you see the reference for the bride of Christ, it's the church, specifically the church. Could God or Christ add somebody in before or after? He absolutely can. Why? Because he created it all. He can do whatever he wants. Do I care one way or the other? No. Because once I receive my perfect mind and body, I'm not going to care about a whole lot of stuff that I got in. Be like, yeah. So the rest of it, it don't really matter to me. Not at all. Shoot, God could let everybody off and it wouldn't bother me none. If we go against his character, he can't. He has to punish sin. But I would not have fight him on it. I'd be like, no, you can't do it. Not my place. But he won't. He's not gonna. Okay, now we're going to go back, and we're breaking off from Revelation chapter 19, and we're going to go back to the Battle of Armageddon. Okay, this is the third phase of the war. I have called the location where the Israelites, the Jews, escaped to. Remember the woman who fled from the dragon, and she was carried away by the wings of eagles into a safe place for 3.5 years? That place, we call it Petra. Petra is a very, very specific place in the specific place. The name of the place is Basra, which is in Jordan. It's actually a city now. In Basra, the border of Basra is where Petra is located. You know? Okay? The Bible does not say it's in Petra. This is what it does say. Before I go there, what God did, or is going to do, one of the two, I don't know who all is in Basra right now. I don't know if there's a couple cities there that are being dwelt in. I think there is a city. I think it is Basra. And for the record, Basra is spelled B-O-Z-R-A-H. That does matter because you have B-O-S-A-R, which is a different place, and B-O-S-A-R-A-H, which is in Iraq. B-O-Z-R-A-H. If you swap the Z for an S, you will get a city in Iraq. And none of this, none of what I'm telling you is going to make any sense. Because there's no way they could flee to Iraq. They'd be getting closer. Actually, it's on the southeast portion of Iraq, which would be on the other side of the Euphrates River, which would make the drinking with the Euphrates River totally pointless. So that is very, very important, that Z. I'm going to read for you from Jeremiah 49, verses 13 through 18. And Jeremiah is big. So, here we go. For I have sworn by myself, declares the Lord, that Basra will become an object of horror, a reproach, a ruin, and a curse, and all its cities will become perpetual ruins. I have heard a message from the Lord, and an envoy is sent among the nations, saying, Gather yourselves together and come against her, and rise up for battle. For behold, I have made you small among the nations, despised among men. As for the terror of you, the arrogance of your heart has deceived you. O you who live in the clefts of the rock, who occupy the height of the hill, though you make your nest as high as eagles, I will bring you down from there, declares the Lord. Edom will become an object of horror. Everyone who passes by it will be horrified and will hiss at all its wounds. Like the overthrow of Sodom and Gomorrah with its neighbors, says the Lord. No one will live there, nor will a son of man reside in it. This is God pronouncing judgment over Basra. The one thing I've not been able to totally lock down is if, because I don't know much about Basra itself, if there was this event has already happened, or if this is an event that happens during the tribulation period to evacuate it out. I don't know. I know, I watched the special on Petra, so I know there's some people who go into who live in a city near it, and they drive there in the middle of the night into the desert around Petra, looking for oil lamps and stuff like that. You know, so there's somebody relatively close. Not that many of them. There's not 5 million of them like that. It's a rather small number of people, but they protect Petra with a vengeance. You know, they find it to be somewhat of great importance. It's also an archaeological site, and they've uncovered like 3% of Petra. It's a minuscule amount, like because it's so old and fragile. The sand, like you can see in Indiana Jones in the Last Crusade with Sean Connery, that temple at the end, that's Petra. That's what that is. It's the face of it. Now, if you shot over here to the right and to the left, there's this big giant bowl area that looked like a Coliseum stadium thing that was like stadium seating type area. There's a lot of really fascinating things about Petra. But a lot of it is gated off. People are not allowed to, they can go up and take pictures of the stuff in the front, but they can't actually go in it or under it or anything. There's catacombs down there. But most of it's covered in sand. It's like sandstorm blew in and just filled the whole place up. It's incredible. And the sand, it's like a red sandstone, and it's very soft. I mean, it's holding its shape, but it's almost like, man, if you had a water hose in that thing, it would just disintegrate. I mean, it's crazy what this place looks like. And it's really fascinating to do some research on what Petra actually does look like. So, Basra gives us a larger area. Okay? There's a 1 mile tract in and out. It's like 60 foot high. Okay, imagine a mountain, like one of those flat plateau mountains you see over in Nevada. Okay? Make one about 2 miles long in diameter. Okay? Cut a big hole out of the middle of it, put Petra in there, and then take a giant axe and split one side of it. Makes a crack all the way to the ground. There's basically a ravine that runs right, it's about 1 mile long, runs all the way from the outside of the mountain wall to where Petra is. And it's basically, I think it's like 67, 65 feet high or whatever. I mean, you could probably scale it if you had the right equipment, but there's no ladder that gets you to the top of that thing. You have to be airdropped on it or, fire engine out there with one of those extension ladder deals they have. That's the only way to get up there, or have the equipment to climb it, scale it. So it's one of those places that is just like there's one way in, one way out. And back in the day, my understanding is the wall, that the top was so high that they couldn't make ladders to get up there. I mean, I could probably come up with a way, but not a safe way, So it was easily protected. And I believe that the remnant will be inside Petra, but they're not all going to fit inside Petra, especially not as weak as the place is. It's not an overly stable location. Okay, moving on. Now, here's where we come to the remnant going to Basra and why we can think it's Petra. It's in Micah 2, verse 12. And it reads, I will surely assemble, O Jacob, Israel, all of thee. I will surely gather the remnant of Israel. I will put them together as the sheep of Basra, as a flock in the midst of their pasture. They shall make great noise by reason of the multitude of men. And the sheep of Basra, now, Basra means, remember correctly, it means sheep pen, basically. That's what the word means. So when it says, I will put them together as the sheep of Basra, it means I'm going to pen them in, basically. So if you think about it, it makes sense. A pen has one way in, one way out. Big circle type area, roughly. And Petra fits the description of a sheep pen. On a much grander scale, these sheep would never get out if you put a gate on this thing. But, still. It's just, it makes sense, And God's not about confusion. So, could we be reading more into it than it actually is? Absolutely, we could. I don't think we are. But, to each their own. And I lost my spot. Okay, there we go. And one thing we do know is that the Antichrist is going to assault Basra, and he's going to fail. We're not getting into that this week. Okay? Our focus is not going to be on Basra. So what I have given you already is about all I'm going to give you until next week. Okay. I want to read a passage out of Daniel 11:41. And it reads, Daniel 11, verse 41. He will also enter the beautiful land, and many countries will fall, but these will be rescued out of his hand, Edom, Moab, and the foremost of the sons of Ammon. If you actually look at the location of all three of these places, you could call all three one name, Basra. That's basically what they are, because they have unified. So these actual three individual territories don't exist as three individual territories anymore. It's just they're all part of Basra now. So he will also enter the beautiful land, and many countries will fall. But these will be rescued out of his hand. So it's saying, basically, to rephrase that, Basra will be saved from his hand, referring to he, the Antichrist. Okay? Basra will not fall. LaHaye and Jenkins, in their books, depict almost like a magic shield around Basra. Okay? Every missile that goes in just thuds to the ground. It doesn't blow up. And the ones that do blow up, it's Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego all over again. The remnant of Israel just walking in the fire. No one dies. Okay, they are completely protected as long as they're within the designated areas. So, it's a